This is a panorama that should never have been made, reported by a liar, a bully, a drunkard, out of control and out for revenge.
That's me they're talking about.
At least that's what I'm accused of by these billionaire twins. They own the paper that investigated MPs' expenses. So why do they hate it when the spotlight is turned on them?
If you can hand it out, then you ought to be able to take it. I think that's the rule of thumb.
The Barclay Twins don't pay personal tax in this country. So why is one of their companies claiming £1 billion from the British taxpayer?
I think it's absolutely outrageous. They're incredibly wealthy men who don't pay British tax.
And they've got a private island. So why is there so much trouble with the neighbours?
I felt the best thing to do would be to get as far away from them as possible.
Every day I just feel, just not happy, not like I used to. It is very upsetting.
We're just approaching Brecca from the south.
This is the story of two billionaires who bought their own private island, identical twins who've built a castle.
It's strictly private, so I'm not allowed to land anybody on the island.
They've entertained David Cameron and George Osborne in their extraordinary home.
6 cannons on the top wall.
Right.
If you see a puff of smoke, duck.
They've built a business empire from scratch and given millions to charity. But you may never have heard of them because Sir David and Sir Frederick Barclay are notoriously secretive. Thanks, mate. And that's odd, because they own the Daily Telegraph, Britain's biggest selling broadsheet.
A lot of press barons don't like publicity, they shy away. But if you were to sort of create a scale of reclusiveness, right at the zenith would be the Barclay brothers. They're the most reclusive, most litigious, and therefore I think the most difficult to understand.
The Telegraph exposed the MP's expenses scandal. Great journalism, though the paper published lots of personal stuff about our politicians too.
Tonight at 10 now, Conservatives brace themselves for embarrassing revelations. 6 senior Tories are under fire for their expenses. Their leader says it's time to apologise.
The expenses scandal did the Telegraph a world of good. The twins did not go to the High Court for the Leveson inquiry into the press, but Sir David's son did a turn.
Our last witness this afternoon is Mr. Aidan Barclay. Thank you very much indeed.
Aidan Barclay manages the Telegraph, and he sups with those who hold power. Tony and Cherie, 2 private dinners. Gordon and Sarah, 6. Dave and Samantha, 3.
The driving principle for me is that the editor should follow his readers, because that's what's more likely to make a Telegraph or any newspaper a success.
Aidan told Leveson that it was the media's job to scrutinise those in positions of influence and power and to report in the public interest. We think he's got a point. I'm going to scrutinise 2 men who we think hold positions of power and influence. They are Aidan Barclay's father, Sir David Barclay, and his uncle, Sir Frederick Barclay, the owners of the Daily Telegraph. We think it's in the public interest, but it won't be easy because the Barclays defend their reputation fiercely. There aren't many Tory politicians who will talk about the twins. This one will. Nadine Dorries is no stranger to bad publicity.
Come on, you've got to say the words.
Oh, I'm supposed to get me out of here.
All right, let's get you out.
Oh, get me out!
The MP's had a fair share of negative headlines in the Telegraph. She thinks the Barclays should put up with scrutiny too.
Being owners of a major newspaper puts them in the public eye and makes them public figures. You can't demand that as somebody who's high profile, as owners of a newspaper, that you are entitled to privacy, because I don't believe you are.
What's deeply ironic about powerful press barons who after all make a lot of money invading other people's privacy is how protective they are of their own privacy. It leaves people like the Barclay Twins less scrutinised than people of equal power and wealth in other walks of life.
The twins say they are still entitled to privacy, and they've never objected to media scrutiny.
What we do object to is defamatory remarks made for no good reason.
So let's scrutinise this. A £35 million mansion, a stone's throw from Buckingham Palace. When you or I buy a house, we do so in our own name. But this mansion is registered in the name of a company based in the British Virgin Islands, a tax haven. Why on earth would anyone want to do that? Well, if you are a family of great wealth like the Barclays, there's one possible advantage for future generations.
They won't pay inheritance tax if it's owned offshore, because you only pay inheritance tax on your UK-based assets. The house is now not in the UK for legal purposes. It's outside inheritance tax. If you pay £35 million for the house, and inheritance tax is at 40%, that saves you £14 million in tax straight away.
Around the block, there's more Barclay family property. It cost £21 million, and once again it's owned by a company in the British Virgin Islands. The twins say they've never been involved in any tax avoidance scheme. Their lawyers say
it is disputed that avoidance of inheritance tax had anything to do with the way in which the purchases were made.
Avoiding tax via the offshore route would be perfectly legal, but would it be morally acceptable? The Chancellor might not think so. He's already described aggressive tax avoidance as morally repugnant, and Number 10 has given one tax avoider a good kicking.
I'll make a statement later on if that's okay.
The comedian Jimmy Carr.
He's taking that money and stuffing it into something where he doesn't have to pay taxes. That is not fair. That is not right.
So how do Dave and George feel about the Barclay family placing these London properties offshore? The Prime Minister and the Chancellor declined to comment. The twins left London for Monaco 23 years ago. They deny it's a tax haven, and they say their charitable donations far outweigh what they would have paid in tax if they'd stayed in the UK. Their lawyers point out that they've made a very significant contribution to the British economy. The Barclays bought this little B&B in '95. It's also ultimately owned offshore. Welcome to the Ritz, one of the most expensive hotels in London, and you would have thought a nice little earner for the British taxman. But somehow, it doesn't quite work out like that.
I've looked at the accounts of the Ritz for 17 years. This is fundamentally a profitable business before interest is paid, but they've not paid any tax at all to the UK government during that period. Not a penny.
Avoiding corporation tax in this way is perfectly legal, but is it fair? Aidan Barclay told us that the company hadn't paid any dividends and profits from the Ritz had been reinvested.
The Barclay family members and their companies abide by the law and pay the taxes required by UK law and the laws of other relevant countries. The question of fairness is determined by Parliament when enacting tax law.
According to Sir David, it's nothing to do with the twins. He says they retired more than 20 years ago because of his ill health.
We have since then not attended any office, management or board meetings in the UK. My brother and I have no editorial, political or economic power in the UK.
But our evidence shows the UK companies are controlled by offshore trusts set up by the twins, and that one of the brothers attends trust meetings.
These meetings are taking place in Monaco, but there is no doubt that sitting right in the middle of the meeting are the Barclay brothers, who are therefore able to exercise control of these companies.
The Barclay Offshore Trust also control the Daily Telegraph and the catalogue outfit, Littlewoods. It's another company that has history with the taxman. Littlewoods went to court and won a VAT refund, plus interest, worth almost £500 million.
I just found me a brand new box of matches.
You might have thought that billionaires who don't pay tax in this country would be happy with a payout of £472 million from the hard-pressed British taxpayer. You'd be wrong. The Barclays are hoping for an extra £1 billion in compound interest.
Compound interest isn't normally paid on VAT claims, so Littlewoods is taking the government to court in a test case to get that extra billion.
If they win that case, then a whole raft of other cases. Who knows how many billions of pounds of money will have to be repaid to other people as well. So we're talking about something which could massively increase UK government debt, all for the sake of enriching a company that is operated from offshore tax havens.
For the Barclay family, it's a matter of tax justice. The original VAT claim was lodged before they took over the business in 2002. So David said,
"My brother and I are not responsible, but we are informed that every company has a right to claim repayment of overdue payments from the revenue and for the loss of interest."
So the Ritz has paid no corporation tax for 17 years, but Littlewoods is seeking £1 billion from the taxman.
I think it's absolutely outrageous. These are incredibly wealthy men who don't pay British tax, who live in their tax haven island. I think it's just utterly appalling.
David Cameron, George Osborne and I have one thing in common. We've all been to Breccu. The difference is, I wasn't invited to the twins' little holiday home in the Channel Islands. It was way back when I had hair. Well, sort of. The castle was being built, and shortly after this was filmed, I trespassed on their island. I then made a mistake while talking about the story on Radio Guernsey, and the twins took me to court for libel in the UK and France. The BBC paid damages, and I apologised. The Barclays say I should not be making this panorama because I have a history of making misleading, fabricated and libelous statements about them. They say I am malicious and out for revenge, a liar acting as judge and executioner. I'm not going to Breccu today, but to the island next door, its big sister, Sark. So help me with the geography.
This is Sark, and this is Breccu over here.
They're so close together. I mean, how big's that gap?
It's actually not that far apart, it's only 80 yards.
A tiny statelet and a tax haven, Sark is home to just 600 people. Funnily enough, I'm not the only person around here who's heard from the Barclays lawyers. Sark's postmistress put up a private eye article about the twins in her shop. She was accused of libel and forced to apologise. So was gardener Joe Birch.
Flowers look lovely.
And retired hotelier Richard Dew.
Hello.
Sark's judge, Reg Gill, had to apologise twice.
Lovely weather. Oh, not bad for this time of year at all.
The Barclays lawyers told us,
"Free speech is not an unfettered right, and nor should it be. Anyone making defamatory and false allegations may be expected to withdraw those comments if a legitimate complaint is made."
One local lawyer offered to defend people for free.
They feel that they have to be very careful about what they say, otherwise they may be sued. I think that, understandably, puts people under a lot of stress.
The island is a bit of a time warp. Cars are banned, so you have to find other ways of getting about. And some of the laws are old-fashioned too. The island is owned by the Queen and leased to her representative, the Seigneur. Until 4 years ago, Sark was feudal. The Seigneur used to collect a personal tax on property sales. So when they bought Breccu, the Barclays had to pay him £180,000.
They were polite, reasonable. They didn't stand out in any way other than the fact that they were identical twins, dressed in identical clothes.
But the friendliness did not last long. The twins wanted their money back.
I remember I received a writ to appear before the court in Guernsey to say that Breccu was no part of Sark.
After a 4-year battle, the Barclays dropped their case. Breccu is part of Sark. Their lawyers are still challenging the island's laws. This is Chief Pleas, the only parliament in the world with the keys left behind the door.
The Barclay Twins aren't very happy about the laws that's been passed in this small room. They've been to the Guernsey courts twice, the Appeal Court in London and the Supreme Court. They've launched 3 judicial reviews, taken 2 cases to the European Court of Human Rights. Oh, and they've petitioned the Queen 7 times.
The twins say all the legal proceedings
took place in the interest of democracy and against undemocratic feudal power. It is a fundamental principle of the free and democratic world that individuals are able to resort to law to put things right.
The old feudal system was unfair, and the Barclays did help bring the first democratic elections to the islands. But the twins say it's not a proper democracy, and their legal onslaught continues.
I've got a pile of letters this deep from our advocate in Guernsey. And of course, there's always this feeling that if you step out of line, you're going to get sued, taken to court. Or, if we pass laws here in Chief Pleas, suddenly they're petitioned.
The twins say that the Seigneur retains feudal power and, like many on Sark, has profited from multiple offshore directorships. They also point out that they've given money to 3 local charities, which is true, up to a point. The largest donation by the Barclay Twins was for £200,000 towards the island's spanking new hall. Very generous. But after the hall was built, the Barclays demanded their money back. The hall is a licensed bar, and the twins wanted it closed because, they said, it was too close to the island school. When the trustees refused, they were taken to court.
The trustees, who were ordinary folk, were sued jointly and severally, each one potentially liable for the whole amount, some £200,000. And I remember one of the trustees came up to me in tears.
The Barclays eventually lost, but the trustees say they were put through 2 years of hell.
Had we lost the case, it meant I would lose my home in order to settle the debt. The stress was unbelievable, and the relief afterwards was absolutely incredible when we actually got there.
The Barclays have created jobs by investing £30 million on Sark. Their businesses are run by this man, Kevin Delaney. A trusted lieutenant, Mr. Delaney shares many of the Barclays' views about the island. He also has a business of his own, publishing a parish paper. Mr. Delaney says the Sark newsletter campaigns for true democracy.
This is certainly an important one because it introduced the concept that Sark was comparable to Germany in the late 1930s under Hitler. I think it's very intimidating to people. They're frightened of being mentioned in it and vilified in it.
If you believe the newsletter, Sark is ruled by some pretty nasty people. The former headmistress has a lust for power and runs a Stalin-like dictatorship.
I choose not to read the newsletter now because it raises my blood pressure. I think there are things that are very difficult to justify.
An island farmer has no compassion or sense of shame and is an intensely disliked and unpleasant man.
The thing was, you know, I didn't feel that I was disliked to such a degree, and, you know, I've lived on the island all my life. I know everybody in Sark. It did hurt. It hurt for a long time.
And a local artist has been accused of failing to account for public money.
The stress, you know, is obviously having an effect on me. Every day I just feel just not happy, you know, not like I used to. So it's really, it is very upsetting for people like me who just want, I wish they'd just stop it, stop the newsletter, stop with the bullying, and let us live in peace.
But the real poison is reserved for an 84-year-old man, the seigneur. When the seigneur's wife suffered a stroke, the newsletter castigated the way she was treated. It accused the seigneur and Sark's doctor of willful negligence.
The most upsetting part for me was the fact that in a time of great tragedy, the family were being treated very badly. What we're talking about is the husband of a lady who's suddenly become critically ill, and I found it extremely upsetting that an opportunity, as far as I believe, was being taken to attack a man when he's already so worried about his wife.
I'm afraid to say it was just typical. I mean, I thought it was absolutely disgraceful. It's just treated it with utter contempt, quite frankly.
Over the past couple of years, Mr. Delaney's relationship with the Barclays has been repeatedly raised here in Chief Pleas. Sark's politicians say he wouldn't be able to publish the newsletter against his employer's wishes. Surely the twins could stop it if they wanted to. When we put this to the Barclays, their lawyers said,
"Our clients find it extraordinary that you suggest they should ask Kevin Delaney to stop publishing the Sark newsletter. What would that be, other than an attempt to stifle free speech?"
The Barclays say the newsletter is nothing to do with them, but islanders remain unconvinced. They say the newsletter targets those who oppose the twins. It makes foul allegations about people and doesn't ask for their side of the story.
Well, they usually ask me, can I sue? And I say you can, but my advice is that you don't, because you can't afford to. Libel is a rich man's legal remedy.
Mr. Delaney denies that the newsletter is defamatory or that it targets people who oppose the Barclays. He says he's the victim of harassment and that the newsletter campaigns to stop bullying by the feudal establishment. I dropped by his office to pick up a copy. Hello, hi. Have you got some copies of the newsletter?
I don't, unfortunately, because it's not printed up here.
Oh, I see. This is how he described my behaviour in a letter copied to the Chairman and Director General of the BBC.
Some of the hotels might have them.
Smashing.
You invaded my offices demanding to know where I was in a raised voice. You invaded people's privacy and photographed people without their consent.
Smashing.
I can probably get some up here for you.
No, I don't want to inconvenience you.
It is clear that you behaved like a bully and a thug.
Thank you.
All right, pleasure.
Cheers, bye-bye. So much for the accuracy of Mr. Delaney's newsletter. This really is a very strange place. There does seem to be a man in the bushes up there. It's possible we're being spied on. Get that, blue bike? And now he's just gone. Are we being spied on? It seems that we're being followed by one of Kevin Delaney's minders. Good afternoon. We just stopped for a cup of tea, and the same man who'd been following us out to the cliff top has been spotted lurking in the shrubbery behind me. When we head back to the main street, he's waiting for us again. The same bloke in 4 separate locations. We go to the harbour, and guess who turns up? Mr. Delaney's minder. So I ask him, what's he up to? We were in the avenue, you were in the avenue.
Yeah, I did be outside.
Yes.
I would be.
Yes, absolutely. Then we went to the cliff top.
Mm-hmm.
Then you were in the cliff top.
Yeah, I was speaking to that nice couple.
Yes. And then we went to the seigneury. And
And I was round by the winery.
You were in the shrubbery.
Yeah, in the winery.
And then you were waiting down the lane as we passed by, and now you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm waiting for someone to come off the pub. That's all. Right.
So it's a coincidence that we bumped into him 5 times in 4 hours. You do know Mr. Delaney, don't you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
He's Sark Estate Management. That's what he works with.
Is he?
That's what I know.
Very good.
Okay.
Very good. Well done. Thank you. His boss, Kevin Delaney, said I was a drunkard, boorish, oafish, a disgrace to journalism, pursuing a twisted and warped agenda. He declined our request for an interview. The island's doctor has had enough of Mr. Delaney, and he's fed up with the Barclay Twins. He's left Sark for good.
I felt that that with their enormous wealth, that really the best thing to do would be to get as far away from them as possible.
The twins also declined to be interviewed. They said my questions were defamatory, bullying, intimidating, stressful, and amounted to interrogation by the state. But the Telegraph raises questions much like ours all the time.
I think when you own a newspaper group, then I think it ill behoves you to hide away. I think that you have to understand that, okay, you don't want to be a public figure, but by the very virtue of your newspaper ownership, you are.
The twins say they won't be judged by me, and that the outcome of this programme will be settled in the courts of the UK, France and Monaco. This is a family of great power who are used to getting their own way.
If you're invading other people's privacy and reporting in a way which means delving into the private lives of other people, then I think you have to take it on the chin. You have to suck it up and take it on the chin yourself.
The last thing we want is a legal battle with billionaires, but we think this programme is in the public interest. In the words of Aidan Barclay, it's our job to scrutinise those in positions of influence and power. And surely that includes the owners of our national press.
The Harpers are having problems picking the perfect gifts. Christmas comedy with My Family is next here on BBC One.